Then, Mom. For now, make my lunch every day until I can have $30,000. If you don't want to, then I won't let you see Sally anymore. My life was turned upside down by my eldest son's unreasonable demands. Before dawn had even broken, I started preparing 3 lunchboxes for my son's family and then headed off to the nursing home. Despite being worn out from fatigue and lack of sleep, I couldn't bring myself to cut ties with my son as I thought of my dear granddaughter, Sally. But one day, Sally, in tears, revealed a shocking truth that her parents had been hiding. I could no longer forgive those two. Reaching my limit, I decided to fight back. My name is Helen. I'm 72 years old. I lost my husband last year and now I live alone in the house. My husband, who was the same age as me, developed dementia in his later years. I took care of him at home for a while, but in his final year, he was taken care of in a nursing home. Thanks to that, I still have ties with the nursing home even after my husband passed away. The staff there were very kind to me when I was overwhelmed by caregiving. Thanks to them, my husband was able to spend his last year in peace. The facility was always busy due to staff shortages. After he passed, I consulted with the staff and decided to help out a little. I've always been good at cooking and baking, so on the days I went to the facility, I would bring homemade lunches and desserts as gifts for the staff. Then one day, as I was doing housework on a holiday, my eldest son's family suddenly visited. I was surprised by the sudden visit, but I served them tea. Mom, it's been a while. Sorry for dropping in like this. We've got some issues and decided to move here. My son, Ethan said, reaching for the cookies on the table. He looked somewhat tired. Natalie, my son's wife, hardly spoke since arriving, constantly fiddling with her cell phone. A sudden move. Had there been some trouble? A flicker of unease crossed my mind, but I smiled at my granddaughter, Sally. Sal. You've grown up so much. Have you been well? It must have been about 5 years since I last saw my son's family. Ever since my husband developed dementia, I was too busy with his care to spare any time or emotional energy. I hadn't been able to pay much attention to my dear granddaughter, Sally, since the caregiving started. Grandma, it's been a long time. I've been good. You know, I'm already in my 3rd year of middle school. Oh my, time flies. So you're a student preparing for exams this year. You have to work hard. I smiled at her, but her face clouded over for a moment. I wondered, considering it's such an important time for exams, was it really okay for them to move? Just then, a cat's meow came from the kitchen. Sally, delighted, exclaimed, "A cat," and ran towards the kitchen. Mom, since when did you have a cat? No, that kitty just comes to visit occasionally. I always leave the back door ajar for it. Huh? That's a bit unsafe, isn't it? Ethan was staring intently towards the kitchen. Natalie didn't even lift her face from her cell phone. While Sally was away, I asked Ethan and Natalie in detail about why they moved. Their explanation was hesitant, but in summary, they had financial troubles due to a failed business and moved in a hurry to cut down on expenses like rent. I then asked about his job. Job? Well, it's so-so. There have been various things, and I've been feeling unwell. The doctor told me to rest for a while. But more importantly, Mom, I have a favor to ask. He asked to borrow money from me. He explained that the business failure and the move had led to large expenses, and he had almost no cash left. He needed about $5,000 for immediate living expenses. Honestly, I was shocked. Even though he was my eldest son, I was hesitant to lend such a large amount of money. And I wondered if this couple was really thinking about their future. But no matter how much I asked, they insisted, just lend us the money. Reluctantly, I took out $5,000 from my savings and handed it to him. He smirked as he received the money and quickly put it in his pocket. Well, I'll do what I can to help, for Sal's sake. So make sure you do your best. Thanks, Mom. We're heading back now, but we'll be depending on you more often, so keep the meals ready. After saying that, he called Sally, who was petting the cat in the kitchen, and the 3 of them left. While cleaning up the dishes, I felt a sense of foreboding about what was to come. Mom, it's me. I'll be coming over tonight, so have the bath and dinner ready. And the money you gave me is gone, so I'll need a bit more. See you. Ethan hung up without waiting for my reply. I sighed and placed my phone on the table. It's been half a month since my eldest son's family began imposing on me. Since then, Ethan had been coming almost daily for meals and money. Initially, I prepared special meals and lent him thousands of dollars, especially when Sally visited on weekends, but I had reached my limit. Ethan claimed he couldn't work due to doctor's orders, but he seemed perfectly healthy. And I couldn't understand why he was quickly spending all the money I lent him. I finally lost my patience and sternly spoke to him and his wife when they visited that evening. I told them I didn't want them to come so frequently and to stop asking for meals and money. What? You said you'd help, Mom. Were you lying? As expected, Ethan reacted angrily. Natalie silently ate the meal I prepared while playing with her cell phone. There's a limit, you know. Preparing meals every day and constantly lending money. Enough is enough. I'm going to go bankrupt at this rate. Fine. I'll give up on the money for a while. But in return, make daily packed meals for us until I can get a decent amount of money. Make sure it's 3 meals for us every day. What? That's impossible. I told you, I'm helping at the nursing home on weekdays. Then just deliver it on your way there. If you wake up at 3 a.m., you'll have enough time to prepare everything. As I stood there in disbelief, he continued. If you won't do anything for us, then I won't let you see Sally anymore. We'll be estranged. Knowing how much I adored Sally, my only granddaughter, he said this with a smirk. Honestly, I wanted to cut ties with this couple, but my concern for Sally held me back. Let me think about it. I can't prepare that much money immediately. Then, for now, gather about $30,000. Until you gather it, I expect daily packed meals. Come on, Natalie, let's go. From now on, Mom will be delivering our meals, so we won't have to bother coming here. Then, my life was completely transformed. I woke up before dawn to prepare packed meals for my son's family and then headed to the nursing home. Despite being exhausted and sleep-deprived, I couldn't decide to cut ties with my son, as I was concerned about Sally. Perhaps this hectic life continued for about a month. Then one weekend, Sally came alone, unusually. I greeted her with a smile, but her expression was somber. I wasn't supposed to come here anymore, according to Dad. As she petted the cat lying in the kitchen, she said quietly, Dad and Mom make you prepare packed meals every day, then they just laze around at home and do nothing. I'm so sorry. Sal, you don't have to apologize. Well, I am a bit worried about those too. But how's your new school? Are you managing to keep up with your studies? I tried to change the topic cheerfully, but she just silently cried. I was surprised by this sudden outburst and comforted her by rubbing her back, but she eventually started to sob loudly. I didn't understand why, but I patiently waited until she calmed down. Eventually, Sally stopped crying and revealed an unbelievable truth. Since moving here, she hadn't been attending middle school. Not only that, but Ethan had forced her to work part-time jobs by lying about her age. She was juggling several jobs from morning till evening every weekday, and all the money she earned went straight into Ethan's pocket. Moreover, he had taken away her cell phone when they moved. One day, he suddenly said, "We're moving," and forced her into a truck without allowing her to say goodbye to her friends or teachers. He had fiercely sworn her to secrecy about this to me, her grandmother. I was stunned and at a loss for words as Sally tearfully recounted these shocking facts. It was almost like a midnight escape. What on earth had happened to my eldest son and his wife? So that's what happened. Sal, you've been going through a lot. I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner. But thank you for telling me. No, I'm sorry. I made you worry. Yesterday, I overheard Dad and Mom talking about taking Grandma's land deeds secretly and planning to put you in a nursing home pretending you've gone senile. I couldn't stand it anymore. I hugged her as she started to cry again. I could no longer forgive my son, even though he is my own flesh and blood. I had been tolerating this for the sake of my dear Sally, but I had reached my limit. He is a grown adult and a parent. He must be held responsible for his actions. I silently made up my mind. Sal, don't worry about anything. Just leave everything to me. By the way, which school are you planning to take the entrance exam for? I smiled at her encouragingly. Her eyes, red from crying, softened a bit. I want to go to White Feather Ridge Academy. With everything going on and no money, I might not even be able to take the exams. Oh, White Feather Ridge. I know it, it's a culinary and pastry school, right? The founder was a classmate of your grandpa and me. It's a great school. Really? That's amazing. I love the food you make, Grandma. I want to make people happy with my cooking, just like you. Sally then shared her dream with me. Despite the difficult circumstances, she hadn't given up on her dream and was steadily studying. I encouraged her to continue her studies and made her promise to do so. After seeing her off, I immediately sprang into action. First, I decided to thoroughly investigate my son and his wife and hired a private detective. A week later, I received the investigation results, pondered for a while, and then made several calls. Once everything was ready, I called Ethan. I told him I had gathered a considerable amount of money and wanted to hand it over in person. I insisted that both Natalie and Sally come along, thinking he would finally receive a substantial amount of money. He happily agreed to my conditions, and we decided to meet at a cafe over the weekend. Sitting at a window-side table in the cafe, I was checking my phone when Ethan's family arrived. I placed my phone on the table and exchanged greetings. Hey, give me that money now. Do you want to be cut off from us? Ethan immediately reached for the tea envelope in my hand. The envelope was stuffed full and bulging. I pulled the envelope towards myself and held it firmly. If you wish, I'm fine with cutting ties. But before that, there are some things I need to confirm with you two today. I'll give this to you after that. I first pointed out to my son and his wife that they hadn't been sending Sally to middle school since moving, and furthermore, had illegally forced her to work part-time. They tried to evade the issue, but perhaps eager for the money, they admitted the truth. We had no choice because we were out of money. If we get the money, we'll stop making her work and send her back to school. That sounded suspicious. I continued to inquire about his apparent lack of employment. Are you really under doctor's orders not to work? Which hospital? You should have receipts and medical cards. I'd like to see them. I don't have it. Are you faking an illness? Lying just because you don't want to work? As the atmosphere grew increasingly tense, he finally raised his voice. Don't say such awful things. True, I haven't been to a hospital, but I've been through a really tough time. Something shocking happened. Hey, Ethan, why don't you tell me honestly what happened? Then I'll give you this, I said, indicating the envelope in my hand. Reluctantly, he began to speak. All right. I told you before that my business failed, but the truth is, I was betrayed by a business partner. This guy, Walter. He silently took off with all the money I worked hard to earn. All the crucial know-how and equipment for the business were in his hands. So there was nothing I could do. So that's what happened. I'm the victim here. That's why we couldn't pay rent and had to move here in a hurry. Now give me that money, will you? He said, and finally snatched the envelope from my hands. As he opened the envelope, instead of a large sum of money, it was filled with a pile of bills. He stared blankly at the bills scattered across the table. Hey, why don't you finally tell the truth? Disappointed in his continual denial, I revealed the facts I had uncovered. He got involved in prostitution as the business started making a profit, accruing a large amount of debt. To cover it, he deceived his business partner, taking all the earnings, and even got involved with loan sharks before fleeing in the night. Sal was thrown into chaos without understanding anything. She couldn't even say goodbye to her friends and teachers, and you took her phone away. Can you understand how scared and miserable she felt? Ethan, seemingly indifferent to my words, desperately searched through the bills for money. I was utterly disgusted watching his pathetic behavior. Ethan had been hiding from loan sharks and business associates, so he hadn't even registered for work. Nor had he completed any school transfer procedures for Sally. His wife, Natalie, wasn't working either, and they had no income. It was clear they had been relying on me from the start. I was going to work, really. Once things settled down. What have you actually done? All you did was demand money and meals from me and forced Sal to work. Natalie doesn't work either and just plays with her phone. Also, I know you've been sneaking into my house while I'm away. It's trespassing. A serious crime. I always left the back door ajar for a visiting cat. Ethan knew this and had been sneaking into my house while I was at the nursing home. On the day I heard about Ethan and Natalie from Sally, I remembered that I had won a pet camera in a raffle once and decided to set it up after pulling it out from the storage. Sure enough, it captured Ethan entering through the back door and rummaging through the cupboards while I was away. The footage was saved on my phone. You were planning to take over my house and land, then put me in a nursing home pretending I've gone senile, weren't you? Wasn't that your plan all along? Shut up. You keep accusing me of crimes. Just because you're my mother doesn't mean you can make up such nonsense without proof. We have a witness here. Suddenly, a deep male voice came from behind. Ethan turned and jumped at the sight of the man. Walter. How come you're here? I was contacted by Helen. Heard there was going to be a discussion today, so I came all this way to join in. Good to see you, Ethan. You seem well. Walter sat down next to Ethan, blocking his escape. It was my first time meeting him, but Walter was a large, imposing middle-aged man. I wondered how Ethan dared to cross someone like him. Ethan, return my money now. I've called the police outside, and I've filed a report. Either return the money or turn yourself in, right now. As Walter said this, Ethan frantically looked towards the window. A police car had parked right in front of the store, and an officer was standing there. He was pressing the phone to his ear, looking in our direction. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief, and he involuntarily stepped back while still seated. Wait. I'm sorry, Walter, really sorry. I'll return the money. I didn't run away, I just needed some time. Please. Just give me another half-month. So you plan to flee again, huh? Do you really think I can trust the words of someone who's already deceived me once? I'll ask you one more time. Will you return the $30,000 you stole from me right now, or go to the police officer outside? Which is it? Ethan was facing imminent arrest. A palpable, bottomless fear struck him, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. He trembled and remained silent, staring at the table. Eventually, Ethan's bloodshot eyes slowly turned towards me. Hey, Mom, is this okay with you? If I get arrested, Sally will be the daughter of a criminal. Her life will be ruined because of your meddling. If you don't want that, give me the money. Walter, sorry to interrupt, but could I borrow your phone? Mine isn't working at the moment. I need to call this number. I said, cutting off Ethan's desperate attempt. Ignoring his stunned expression, I took the phone Walter handed me and dialed a number. I switched it to the speaker mode and placed it on the table. Sal, I'm calling the principal of White Feather Ridge Academy. I've briefly explained your situation. Please talk to him. Sally, taken aback, managed a startled huh? The call started, and she hesitantly took the phone. A deep, calm male voice came through. Yes, this is Nathan White. Hello, my name is Sally. I love my grandmother's. My grandma's cooking. And I want to be able to make people happy with my cooking too. I was wondering about White Feather Ridge Academy. A phone call with the admired Principal White of White Feather Ridge Academy. Sally, nervously fumbling her words, tried her best to convey her feelings to the principal. Principal White listened attentively, nodding and responding kindly to her words. Thank you for sharing that with me. I understand your feelings well, Sally. You've been through a lot. Your grandma, Helen, is an old friend of mine. And I'm aware of your situation. Sally suddenly fell silent, struck by the realization. That's right, there was no hope for her exams or her future. Her shoulders slumped, like a deflating balloon. But that's not a problem, Sally. You have a dream, and you're working hard towards it. It's an honor that you've chosen White Feather Ridge Academy as your first step. We provide equal opportunities to all children, regardless of their circumstances. Come and take the exam with confidence. We're waiting for you. After the call ended, I thanked Walter and returned his phone. "There you go, Sal. Now you're all set. Ethan can turn himself in without any worries." Ethan sat frozen, expressionless. In case you don't know, White Feather Ridge Academy is the culinary school Sal aspires to. She's working hard towards her dream, despite the troubles caused by her foolish parents. Her future won't be hindered by them. Sally looked at her father. Her cheeks were still flushed from the phone call, but her eyes sparkled with hope. Ethan, deflated and ashamed, lowered his gaze. Encouraged by Walter, Ethan eventually left the cafe and went outside. The police officer put away his phone and began talking with him. "It was regrettable to see my child in police custody, but for Sally's sake, he needed to face the consequences of his actions." I picked up my phone, which had been on the table. I had consulted with the officer beforehand and had the phone on a call throughout our discussion, enabling the officer to listen in. The entire conversation was recorded, ensuring Ethan couldn't escape this time. And there was one more thing. I turned to Natalie. During the entire exchange, Ethan's wife, who had shown little interest in her family's situation, was busy with her phone. I looked at her, somewhat exasperated, and said, "Natalie, Ethan has gone to the police. What about you?" She glanced over, uninterested. "Huh? I don't care about that husband. I'm getting divorced right away." Sally looked at her mother in shock. "Wait, what about Sal? The divorce is between you two, but you need to think about Sal. I've made up my mind about my future, so just leave me alone. I've been dragged around enough by my husband and want to do what I want for a change." Tears began to stream down Sally's face. Both her father and now her mother had hurt her deeply. I sighed, feeling a mix of anger and resignation. Later, Ethan confessed to all his crimes at the police station and was still being interrogated. He had accrued a debt of $50,000 from prostitution, stolen $30,000 from his former business partner Walter, and borrowed $20,000 from loan sharks. The total amount he had extracted from me was around $20,000. Naturally, both Walter and I intended to claim every penny back. As much as it pains me to see my own child in this state, I hope Ethan takes this opportunity to reflect deeply and make amends for his actions. Natalie, as Ethan's wife, was also interrogated, and during the process, it was discovered that she was a victim of a scam. It was a romance scam, where she was seduced by someone she met on social media, entering into a romantic relationship before being skillfully conned out of a large sum of money. The person Natalie had been constantly interacting with on her phone claimed to be a certain ultra-famous handsome actor. One day, she received a discreet direct message from him and fell head over heels in love after being fervently pursued. She continued transferring money as instructed. Of course, it was all a sham. The person posing as an actor was a fraudster. Her case matched numerous other reported incidents to the police, and realizing she was scammed, she was left devastated. Having already divorced Ethan, she was left with nowhere to turn, wandering the streets. I decided to live with Sally afterward. We sold our family home and land, moving to an apartment near White Feather Ridge Academy. The property, located in a prime urban area, had immense value, fetching us several $1,000,000. To ensure Sally would be taken care of even after my passing, I made her the beneficiary of the assets. Despite the hasty move and the turmoil caused by her parents' police involvement, Sally persevered and kept working hard. I helped with her middle school transfer and her entrance exam preparations. Thankfully, all our efforts paid off, and Sally was successfully admitted to White Feather Ridge Academy. Just as Principal White said, Sally is now diligently pursuing her studies at the academy, enjoying her youth surrounded by friends. As I watch my beloved Sally grow and thrive, I live a contented and peaceful life.